Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Latino Vote podcast, and welcome to GOTV weekend. We are just a few days before the election. You'll be getting this podcast hot and heavy on a Friday before election. Screw your wigs on tight, ladies. The roller coaster is fixing to begin. Keep your arms and legs inside the roller coaster at all times, Mike Madrid.
Wow, I know what you have done in a previous profession. You're clearly well practiced and well versed at that. I could actually see you being a great carnival barker or running the roller coaster. I'm guessing that's got to be on the Chuck Rocha resume somewhere, right?
$3 a shot. Come over. $3 a shot. Break the barrels and $3 a shot. Win you a stuffed animal for your lovely bride.
See, I knew you've done it. How are you feeling, man? We're in the last. We've been saying the last stretch, but this is like. The last week is kind of the nutty, like, do I sleep or do I not? How many doors can I knock? How many mailers can we drop? How many texts can we still send? The cannon has been fired. The artillery has been unloaded. Where are you at? Where's your head at?
Look, here's the dirty secret that only you and a handful of people in this profession knows. That 4 days before the election, we're done.
We're done.
We're done.
Yeah.
It's like I told Ebony, it's like you got to trust your plan and then you work the plan. That's all you can do.
There's nothing else you can do.
Work the plan. So for all of you at home are like, what do you mean it's done, Chuck? We got to get off this vote. And we do. And we have to work and run through the tape and all the analogies. But for all you nerds out there that want to know behind the scenes of a strategist, you should know that me and Luis and Daisy and Roberto and Vanessa, the whole Solidarity team, we shipped our last ad 3 days ago. It's been gone. There's no new creative going up. Everything's made. Everything in the business, as we say, has shipped. All the mail that we've done, it's been long gone. You don't take any chances with mail in the post office at the end of having a piece of mail showing up after Election Day. It is gone. All your digital ads are up. All your digital ads your replacements are all there. There's nothing left to do but knock on a lot of doors and exactly what we're doing right now, Mike Madrid, because I also have phone and texting in my business.
Yeah.
Is now everybody who's got any kind of money are calling me going, hey, man, what do you think? I'm like, all you can do now is call people. You can call them or text them. And they're getting so many texts for dollars. I would just call and call and call. But make sure that you, again, here you go, all of you political students, cross-match your data against the voter file. Take everybody out that's already early voted. Did I miss anything, Mike?
No, I think that's well put. I will also say, and this is a relatively new development over the last 8 years or so. There is a very important day that happens as we start to close this up, and that is the final approval day for Facebook ads.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
It's a big day, like it never was on election day for us consultants. It's a big day. It passed about. My days are all a blur right now, but I think it passed like 5 or 6 days ago. I think like once you're 2 weeks out. You cannot run new creative online, or at least not on Facebook. You cannot run new creative. It's one of the stopgaps they put in to stop the spread of misinformation or disinformation or have nefarious actors. There's your word for the day, nefarious actors messing with our elections. Is all political has to be approved a couple weeks out of an election. I know some viewers gonna find out what that day is and remind Mike Madrid, and that's fine. I'm not thinking straight anymore. My mind.
It was like a week ago.
Like a week
ago. I got the email.
Yeah.
Facebook sent me an email going, okay, dude, tomorrow's your deadline.
That's your deadline. And that's it. Like you cannot put up new creative. There's no last minute making adjustments, new dynamic in the race. Trump had a racist say something about Puerto Rico. Do you want to do something about the garbage island? Can't do that. Can't do it. It's it. Once it's approved, it's approved. That's what you've got. You better have brought your best because you're not going to be able to do all your digital, at least the bulk of a lot of your digital, by making those adjustments. That's a really big day. I know that's nerdy, that's in the weeds, but that's why I think a lot of you guys listen to the show. That passed about a week ago, and so even your digital can't be adjusted. It is what it is. The ads are what they are. They're going to who they're going to. There's no adjustments. If you want to make any small minor tweaks, you could do it on the ground by having your canvassers, your walkers, go to different neighborhoods and meet different demographics. But by and large, you got to just trust the plan now. It's like Eisenhower watching, the soldiers storm the shores at Normandy. There's nothing you can do but execute and watch the plan unfold. And so here we go.
Couple points. One is I'm pretty sure I dated Nefarious's sister and she lived in London. That's A. B. Mike alluded to now what we're into, which is the closing argument, right? That's what's left in the press. Now, that's different than your TV ads. You've already made your closing argument TV ad mail pieces. That all went out. But in the press and the media, which me and Mike do a lot more of now than we do campaigns, is they want to talk about this thing that's the closing argument. Now, for all of you boys and girls, that's a little made up. You should have been talking and making your argument all throughout the campaign. But the press love to talk about the closing argument. And there's normally some big event. And now let's do a little class on comparing the two big events that both of these campaigns have had, quote unquote, for their closing argument. I'll go first. And that is to talk about the Madison Square Garden event. I know Mike's got a lot of opinions. If you follow Mike on Twitter, he tells you all the time his opinion. You can always know how good or bad a mood Mike Madrid is in if you look at his Twitter for just a little bit.
Whether I had a snack or not.
If he hasn't, I don't talk to him all day. Like when he's going after people, I'm like, I think I'll wait till tomorrow to call Mike.
Smart.
Anyway, so this comedian, quote unquote, a comedian, said this crazy thing to open up the whole Madison Square Garden thing. And I know you all know about this, so we'll just hit it and then go on. He said that there's an island of trash in the middle of the ocean, and it's called Puerto Rico. Oh my God. It just blew up everywhere. But let me give you a little inside political information on how things can automatically, crazily, and I don't know how organically maybe take off. Is I'm sitting on my couch watching football on Sunday afternoon like old Mexicans do. Ebony was sitting right next to me. We were watching the Washington Redskins and watching whatever game was going on local. And all of a sudden, I'm on my phone while I'm watching TV, again, media consumption. And I see this go down on Twitter. And then I read the comments and I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And Puerto Ricans, there's 3 rules around Puerto Rican Fight Club. The first one is you don't ever talk about the island. The second one is you never disparage Bad Bunny. And the third one is you never talk about Puerto Rican Fight Club. Those are the things that you don't ever do. So I went on Twitter and I was like, can somebody, first I went on to the voter files and really quickly figured out how many Puerto Ricans in Pennsylvania had not voted yet. And there were over 200,000 of them. So I did some quick math on what it would cost me to send every Puerto Rican in Pennsylvania that video, because I was like, I'll teach them. And I have a super PAC called Nuestro PAC. I ain't got to ask nobody for permission. I go on the Twitters and I say to the American people on the Twitters and said, somebody please give me $30,000, which is what it would cost to send a multi-segment video text message, pretty complicated, to all these folks. And I'll send this video to every Puerto Rican in Pennsylvania. And Mike Madrid, thank you for helping me promote this as well. But within 5 hours, we had raised $30,000 into the Nuestro account. So when people got up the next morning in Pennsylvania, the video was on their phone. Now that's real-time rapid response. I'll go on to say, and then I'm going to shut up and let Mike jump in here. I'll go on to say that we've continued to raise money. We now raised $50,000, and we've been able to text every Puerto Rican and Latino in Georgia. We did that yesterday, and then today we did what did we do today? Oh, we did Michigan and Florida today. Florida, we texted over 280,000 people today. And so it continues to grow. If I raise more money today, and every day I'm raising money, I'm going to do Mike Madrid special in North Carolina and Arizona. So thanks everybody who donated to Nuestro PAC. If you want to help, go to nuestropac.com. This page is not, oh, sorry, I don't have to do that here. But anyway, Mike, thank you for helping me promote. I think a lot of that money came from your followers because I ain't got but 3 on Twitter and you got like 16 million.
Well, we also had some other folks weigh in too and ask people to move it around, and I thought it was a great way to let everybody do something at the last minute that will have an impact. And I do think it's going to have an impact, by the way. And I want to talk a little bit about why I do, because this was different and this was unique, and why it was different, why it was unique is I think why the thread I put out on Twitter kind of blew up. You know, there's a lot of reporters following up saying, "Okay, tell me more. This actually makes a lot of sense." The reason why it got as much traction as it did, this comment by this comedian, and by the way, it was more than just this comedian. There was a cast of 5 or 6 terribles up there saying horrible shit about being a good Jew, about carving watermelons, about women. I mean, but again, this is the reason why it stuck in people's minds was because it didn't come out of Trump's mouth. If Trump had said it, we have been so numbed by his crazy and racist crazy that we would have just rolled our eyes and said, "Oh, there he goes again." Right? Like that's how bad it's gotten in this country, where we just kind of roll our eyes and accept that it's Trump being Trump. His own people, blow it off by saying, "Oh, he's just joking," or he doesn't really mean it, or he just says what he thinks. And an hour later, it would have gone away, and we'd be looking at the next stupid, senile, crazy, racist thing the nutty old uncle said at Thanksgiving dinner, right? But this was not. This was people that the campaign consciously put up there to drive this message for him. That's why people were shocked. And the good news is America still has the ability to be shocked, even at a Trump rally. We still have some sensibilities that can be offended. We haven't so inured ourselves. There's the other word for you, inured. That might
I
have
can't
been.
even say a nerd. Did you a nerd in your pants?
No,
I'm sorry.
we have become so inured to Donald Trump's um, nonsense that it takes somebody else on the stage with him or around him to say things that he would say to remind us how deeply shocking and offensive they are. Now, moreover, as we've talked about on the podcast, Pennsylvania, of the 7 swing states, and each of the 7 swing states has a Latino voter base larger than the margin of victory will be. Pennsylvania is the only one that is a plurality Puerto Ricans. Puerto Ricans are the prime Latino vote in Pennsylvania, and it is the vote that if you were able to move it 2 or 3%, would tip this to Kamala Harris. It's also important to understand the timing. It's why what Chuck's tactic was so genius is most Puerto Ricans have not cast a ballot yet, even though you can vote by mail or early vote. Latinos, this is a little tip for most, we are notoriously a late deciding voter, a late election day deciding voter. And in fact, our opinion on issues, you can see it in tracking polling, also shift. So Latinos were right at the window of paying attention and focusing on the election. This third party messenger drops a race bomb right into the middle of the campaign. And then lo and behold, Bad Bunny, Jennifer Lopez, Residente, Ricky Martin, Geraldo Rivera, combined with over 100 million followers on social media, do what the cable news shows, which a lot of these Puerto Rican Latinos are not watching, by the way. They're not on Twitter following Mike Madrid, even though they should be. I'm sure they listen to the Latino Vote podcast because everybody does. But whenever you have celebrities weighing in, you're driving popular culture. It's something that tells you how deeply impactful your statement or your action was, good or bad, and this was bad. You never want 100 million social media followers driving a message against you 8-9 days before an election because your guy dropped a race bomb. And that's exactly what happened. So even if you say, okay, well, no one was paying attention, no one's watching CNN, Latinos and Puerto Ricans in Philadelphia aren't watching CNN or MSNBC or Fox, okay, fine, fair enough. But are they all following these huge social media celebrities? Of course they are. Do they have the power, all of those people combined, do they have the power to move the Puerto Rican vote 1 to 3 points, 2-3 points? Of course they do. Of course they do. Not only that, they have the ability to inspire more Puerto Ricans to get the hell off the couch and get up and vote if they weren't otherwise predisposed to on just this one issue alone. So, one final thing with all of that, with all this impact. Yeah, there's more, Chuck. Sit down. There's more. For 99 cents more, you can get 3 steak knives for.
I knew he'd get in here.
I can do that Ginsu knife too. You think you're the only carnival barker here. I got skills.
Respect.
So, Republicans in Pennsylvania, this effort by the Kamala Harris campaign to push Republicans out of their Republican cocoons, out of their GOP foxholes, and come on over to the campaign of joy. It has worked in Pennsylvania more than in any other state. When I was on the Lincoln Project in 2020, when we were trying to blow Republicans out of the foxhole and get them to come over and vote for Joe Biden, and I was saying we can get to 6 to 7%, we hit 9% in Pennsylvania. It's the one state of all the battleground states that has the largest GOP defection rate. I'm predicting they hit 10% maybe even a little bit more in Pennsylvania. I think they could hit 10% nationwide, by the way. And this issue is exactly why Republican college educated voters, specifically women, are tired of the Republican Party affiliating itself with white supremacists, being the party of the Confederacy, being anti-immigrant, being anti-Latino, being anti-Puerto Rican, but just being a party of haters. It's not a party of haters, ain't a party. It's a mob. And that's what this has descended into. And these voters, I think, are going to be disaffected. So it hurts with both sides of the aisle. It impacts people when they're listening, and it couldn't have come at a worse time for Trump. That's my, I'd say 5 or 6 cents. It was more than 1 or 2 cents.
I think
What do
it's
you,
really important. I think for all of you, you should listen to what Mike was saying about he didn't talk about this around the way we talk about Donald Trump coming down the escalator saying they're rapists, they're whatever. He didn't talk about this like people are flowing in. All of those are things that they expect Donald Trump to say. And even in the latest New York Times polling, a lot of Latino voters think that he's not talking about them. Let's say that for again. Let me say that again. In the latest New York Times Siena poll, which Mike Madrid thinks is a good poll, and so I trust most of the things that Mike say about polling, not all things, but it's a good big poll. And they said in their last poll, Mike may say something to correct my numbers, but I think 35, 40% of Latino voters in that poll said when he's talking derogatory about immigrants and about immigration, they don't feel like he's talking about them. So keep that in mind. But when you single out and somebody representing your campaign at a podium that says Trump, and you say Puerto Rico is an island of garbage in the middle of the ocean, that hits home with a very specific group of people who are very particular about the way you talk about their island. Anybody who's been to a Puerto Rican Day parade, anybody who's got more than two Puerto Rican friends, you're all smiling right now because you know what I'm saying. This was an unforced error that has a bigger impact than white people will understand. The staffer on my team, Roberto Nava, he lives in Puerto Rico on the island. He gets to work remote from Puerto Rico for me. He makes a lot of money and he lives in Puerto Rico. Y'all should look him up. He's really, really a big deal over there. Uh, he is the one putting together all this messaging. Guess what? For Puerto Ricans, by a Puerto Rican. Like that matters. And he told me, he said, Chuck, the WhatsApp groups, the signal chats, all the things that are behind the scenes that nobody sees is nonstop communication about this. He's like, you have no idea how bad this is because of just the stuff that's organically happening. Also, Mike touched on the star power of Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny yesterday put out this 8-minute love video to the island of Puerto Rico because, again, he is super upset that to tell people that his island is not a garbage island. And so I think this all could have a big impact. I'm not going to regurgitate all of the facts that Mike said about the timing people are voting, the sensitivity of it, but pay attention to this because these are one of the things on the outside, one of these things that really do matter when we talk about this, not mentioning all the other racist stuff that was said in that political convention folks quote unquote are used to and all the ugliness that was said. It was this thing. It was this thing. And it didn't take Kamala Harris's campaign less than 24 hours to put out an ad with this video in it to lots of folks. And then on CNN and on local programming, there's, as me and Mike have talked about, one radio station in Allentown that's really the Puerto Rican juggernaut, which is called La Mega. And La Mega has a morning show host who is like a god in that town. Everybody listens to him. Guess what? He's been on CNN every morning. He's been on his radio program. Guess what? His job is to make money selling ads because Puerto Ricans listen to his radio program. And 6 months ago, that radio disc jockey was like, look, we're a very persuadable universe. I don't know where we're going to go. We're normally a Democratic town, but folks really like Donald Trump. He was super in the middle of the track, not partisan either way. He was walking down the middle because that was probably smart business for him in this town. Well, for the last 72 hours, he's been on every TV station going, this is bullshit. You don't disrespect our community. So we don't have to go down any more of a Puerto Rican deep dive, but that's one side of this closing argument. The other side was last night, which was, we're recording this on Wednesday. Last night was Tuesday, and Vice President Kamala Harris had her big event at the Ellipse behind the White House. If you watched it, the pictures will look very similar because that's where Donald Trump, and I'm going to let Mike talk about this more than me, did his rally. But I want Mike, you to tell me before I give my opinion of what you thought about it when you saw it, the symbolism, the power of it, the good things, the bad things, whatever you thought. What was your take on the big rally last night?
I think she stuck the landing. I think the messaging was right, and I think that it was a great way to essentially close up or bookend the back of what has become a historic, very fast, extremely well executed campaign, given what she was facing. And look, I want to reiterate this again. As somebody who has watched Kamala Harris's rise politically for decades now, knew of her and was aware of her in her career since she was the district attorney in San Francisco. She has risen to meet the moment here. She has proven herself to be a remarkably adept, charismatic, thoughtful candidate. Were there some mistakes? Of course, but they were far, far fewer than candidly I was expecting because I've known her, I've seen her for a long time, and everybody in California will tell you, um, Kamala Harris was not supposed to be the one who would be running for the White House right now. That was supposed to be Gavin. And because he's just a naturally gifted, naturally talented politician, she has to work at it a little bit more. She's clearly very good at it, but even on statewide races in California, by the way, our statewide races, the only thing bigger than a statewide race in California is a presidential campaign. This state is huge. Got 35 million people here. It's a big, big place to do a test run. And my point is, she's always been a good candidate, but she's never been a great candidate. I think she transcended that on the world's biggest stage. I think she became a great candidate in the last 100 days. And I think this really put an exclamation point at the end of it. She made massive adjustments. She handled them deftly. 97% of the answers of all of her questions on whatever venues were handled extremely well. Couple botched answers to be expected. I keep thinking when I see the size of her rallies going out there too, like no one is prepared for that unless you are already a celebrity. It's hard to go out and speak to when a crowd size gets over 2,500, 3,000 people for me, I start getting a little bit nervous, get a little bit squeamish. Like under that, I'm good. When you start to go and talk to 50,000 people, 75,000 people, like that's just a different level. I don't care who you are. Like the human beings are not constituted for that. To have 75,000 people looking at you with millions more on TV, waiting on every word you say and every inflection. It's impressive. It's good to see. I'm proud of her as a Californian. I'm proud of her. I don't agree with her on many issues, but I believe in her. And I know that she's the right candidate. And this is why now her performance was give her an A. The venue is an A. A lot of people, a lot of critics are like, well, we got 35,000 people in Madison Square Garden. It's a deep blue state. Why couldn't she do this in a red state? Because the point was to show the contrast between her and Donald Trump from the last time Donald Trump spoke from that same spot and that same stage. That was the goal. That's the contrast, is to say that I can bring a rally much bigger than yours, and I can bring a rally that isn't going to overthrow the damn government because they don't like the way that this is going. This is what America is. This is the America you get. This is the America we get to reclaim from the clutches of the evil doers. I'll say it, that you've built to put around yourself. That was the whole point. 75,000 is a big number anywhere, red state or blue state. And the whole point of this was, the point for Donald Trump was to go into a blue state and draw a big crowd. That was his goal, because a lot of what he's going to be saying on election day is, I won and they're stealing it from me. I don't believe he's ever really put all the focus that he's wanted to into winning this campaign. He's put most of it into lying about it so that he can steal it afterwards. That's where all the work and energy of his campaign has gone. That's what the preparations for violence are about. That's what this narrative of going to New York and California and to blue states is about. That's what flooding the zone with bad polling is about. That's what having a continual reminder on Fox News is about. That's why Elon Musk is spending 5-10 times a day tweeting out how well Republicans are doing and how this is going to be a Republican landslide. Is because they are positioning the American people, or at least their base, their half of the American people, to reject the outcome that isn't what they're happy with. That's what the whole damn thing is about. It's about violence and chaos afterwards. People need to know that and be aware of it. That's the opposite of what the Harris campaign was demonstrating in her final closing arguments. Is we can respect these institutions. We can look at the Washington Monument. We can look at the White House. We can look at the Lincoln Memorial, all from this perch, and remember who we are as Americans. Remember what the idea of America is, and recognize that the rules are the point. It's not the winning or the losing. It's agreeing to a system of governments. Because once you disagree with that, you don't have a country anymore. And that, I think, is the beauty of the moment. There could not have been a better space to deliver that argument, to deliver that message. And I think she did it very eloquently. I think the show of support was impressive. And I just give her an A for her closing arguments all the way around.
It was quite a nice visual, and I think that the words mattered too. I think that having a big turnout was a big momentum thing for her. She'll be able to tell Donald Trump she had more people than him at his rally, which just pisses him off. But thinking about, I think what Mike touched on, which was two pieces to me. One was an aspirational tone. I mean, she went after Donald Trump. Let me be clear. But she aspired for us to be a better person. And then second, um, she said inclusive things. And she went out of her way to do something very different than what Donald Trump has ever said, ever. One was that Donald Trump is going to go to the White House with an enemies list, and she's going to go to the White House with a to-do list. That's a big time. And she looked into the camera last night and said, I also want to talk to you about anybody who doesn't vote for me will still have a seat at the table to communicate with me, while Donald Trump does not operate that way whatsoever. And so I think that that really matters uh, in the way that people conceive your campaign here at the end, to end on an up note. I would be remiss if we didn't mention that at the same time, Joe Biden was in the White House on a Voto Latino video message, where when he was asked about um, the Puerto Rican thing and the garbage of islands, he said the only garbage he saw were Donald Trump supporters. He walked that back immediately and said, of course, he meant the supporter, aka the comedian, but that's getting a little traction out there. And there's going to be a lot of reporters talking in the next couple of days. And you're going to see lots of stories about, are they using President Biden or are they not? Well, if they're not using him, this is probably why. But we need to mention that just to be fair, because I think there'll be some traction with that out there. And then the last thing that Mike touched on that I do want to get his thought on, because he's brought this up before, and I don't remember if he brought it up on the podcast or if he brought it up in one of the places where we were speaking at. But this week, we've started to see an escalation of violence, talking about the arguments at the end. And for those who've been watching the news, there's been 3 different places where ballots were dropped off at mobile locations in like drop boxes, where folks have set fire to them, which is crazy to me, but that's actually happening. And Mike has talked about how it was at the book party. It was at the live recording of the podcast is where Mike Madrid talked about this. But I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that anymore, Mike, about what had went down this week, because you tweeted about this is how it starts.
Yeah, there were some bombings. And when I say bombings, I want to put that in perspective. There were some ballot box bombings that took place in Washington and Oregon, I believe.
Oregon and Washington for sure.
Yeah. But look, I have always said that the way that the most efficient way to disrupt an election is through messing with what's called the chain of custody of the ballots. The chain of custody is who actually is in control of or handles the ballots. If you are able to go in and blow up ballot box places, these are these places that looks like a FedEx drop off. You drive by, you pull the lever down, you throw in your ballot. It looks like a mailbox, but it's just for ballots. And you drop your ballot off and you put it in there. If you destroy that, there's no way to record what ballots were in there or were not. I mean, my hope is that there's some sort of an app that tracks that and lets people know whether their votes were or were not counted. Each state handles it differently. So, but more often than not, it's simply just like a mailbox, because we've never envisioned in America where people would be blowing up ballot boxes to disrupt elections. But here we are, 2024, America 2024. If you do this in an organized, systemic fashion, and if you start messing with ballot boxes themselves through all sorts of nefarious activity, you could have a mob come in and pretend like people are stuffing the ballot box and claim something to it, and actually, if you've got bad actors that gain control of a ballot box on election day, that chain of custody is broken, whether it was tampered with or not, and it will always be suspect. The point of this election for the crazies on the right is to cast enough doubt on the election such that they can have this be thrown to the House of Representatives and engage in what would be called a contingent election, which would allow the states themselves to cast their electoral votes instead of the Electoral College, meaning the state legislature would approve them. And the Republicans would win that race. That's the goal. That's the objective. And the way you do that is not through contentious elections and allow the Secretary of State to determine which votes to certify. The way you do that is make certification impossible. If you make certification impossible by the destruction of ballots or by messing with the chain of custody, then there's no other option than to go to state legislatures. And the Republicans only need 26 state legislatures to win the election. Well, they got more than that. That's the goal. That's the secret that Donald Trump was talking about at his rally in Madison Square Garden. And that's my fear. The earlier this starts, the more likely it is to spread, the more orchestrated it becomes, the more engaged people become in this activity, the harder it is to tamper down and protect, to have the feds come in. The feds don't have the resources to come in and protect every ballot box location. They just don't. A lot of these are taking places in high school gymnasiums in Des Moines or Arcata or, Peoria. This is small town behavior, small town activity. And by the way, this doesn't have to happen in Latino precincts in Allentown or Black precincts in Philadelphia. It can happen in white districts in Erie County, Pennsylvania. It doesn't matter where it happens because the whole goal is to just create suspicion of the fact that the elections were tampered with. And if there is a legitimate claim to a break in the chain of custody, man, buckle up. We're going to have Chuck come in and give that roller coaster call again because it's going to get really, really bumpy in this country, especially in the week after the election.
And I think the information that Mike's giving you is really important to hear. Don't despair. We can get past it, but just know that there's an intentional plot to try to seed. Don't fall into it. That's all I'm going to say. I hear people call me every day because they're worried about this or they're worried about that. Democrats love to hand wring and clutch their pearls and all the damn things. But anyway, we're probably going to do one more of these before Election Day, and then we're going to do a big show afterwards. But as we lead into this last show, since you're watching this or listening to it on Friday or Saturday, or like many of you do, you like to get some spirit and listen to it right before you go to church on Sunday, probably as you're doing your prayers. I want to talk about maybe what we think is going to happen. Let's think about these states, what we've been seeing as we move into the last, and things maybe for you to watch. As election returns start coming in on election night, I'm already going to tell you that because of the way that many of these battleground states are going to count ballots, we may not know if it's close, and that's just a given. That doesn't mean that anything's, what was that word? Was it nefarious and her cousin?
Yeah, nefarious.
Yeah, I remember
dated
nefarious.
her
I'm dating
sister.
her sister. Yeah, I dated her sister. And if you look at it, look at some of these house races that come in early on where the momentum is happening. Uh, Virginia calls their races early because they close their polls at like 7 o'clock on election night. They count their ballots. They're a good Democratic state. So watch the marginal congressional seats in Virginia. The Spanberger seat, she gave up her seat. It's an open race. It's a 50-50 district. Whoever wins the Spanberger race, I think it's Pennsylvania 7, will be a good indicator. Watch these New York races, even though New York is horrible at counting ballots. They're damn near as bad as California. But if these New York House races start flipping, then something could happen. But also, we talk about Pennsylvania. Watch Pennsylvania 7 and Pennsylvania 10. One's a Democratic incumbent, one's a Republican incumbent. If one of those flips on election night early, there's going to be trouble for that party who lost that race in Pennsylvania 7 and 10. You won't know much about the Senate races because Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, they're going to get their ballots in, and we could know that night, but pay attention to that as well. Uh, Mike will surely talk about don't overreact on early exit polls that you see about Latinos. And Mike, you should probably talk a little bit about the different exit polls we'll see on election night, the difference between the CNN, when the Pew one comes out that you like so much, so that voters will know. I'm just going to talk about the elections. The presidential stuff will definitely be too close, but watch these House races where there's enough votes that will come in where you can kind of get an understanding. Just take California off your board. I'm going to say it before Mike Madrid goes in here and lights his hair on fire. It'll take a month before we know who wins all these House races in California, which
Yeah.
I predict, and Mike will probably agree, will probably be the determining factor of who controls the House of Representatives. And we won't know on election night who controls the House because of California.
Yeah.
Right. What do you think, Mike?
No, look, that's exactly right. And I think let me explain why California takes so long to vote. The reason why it takes California so long to count our votes is because we let everybody vote any damn way you want to. You want to vote by smoke signal? You can vote by smoke signal. You want to vote by carrier pigeon? You can vote by carrier pigeon. You want Nefarious's sister in London to come in and carry your ballot to the ballot box? We'll let
You
Nefarious come
leave
in.
Nefarious out of this.
However you want to vote. You can have your friend take your ballot box to the voting place. You can go vote, as I did, at a vote center. Went to the government center about a week ago and cast my vote. You can go show up on election day. You can mail your ballot in. You can literally, any way you can conceive of voting, including having your friends and family or your dog take your ballot to the voting center. You can do that in California. So when you do that, when you process that many ways to cast a ballot, you don't just throw them all into one heap. You have to keep them sectioned by the way that they were collected for record keeping purposes, so that everybody knows that everything went on okay. And then you have to count orderly in each different process to certify each part and certify each process. You don't start all of them at the same time. That's why it takes California so long. Should it? No, I don't think so, but it's the way we've decided to do that. Now, but Chuck's point is right. I don't believe we are going to know who is going to be in control of the House. I think it's going to be that close until we get to California. And there are about 6 seats that we should all be watching, maybe 7. I think Will Rollins actually beats Ken Calvert down in Palm Springs. I think that's kind of the sleeper race. I think it's one that the Democrats pick up. But I will also say we need to be mindful of the fact that we will have a very good sense of whether this is going to be a fast night for one candidate or the other, or if it's going to be a long, long evening. And the states to watch as the bellwether is the margin in Virginia. If Kamala Harris is winning Virginia comfortably, she's going to have a good night. If Trump is sneaking up on her and it closes into small single digits, then you're gonna have to replay that Chuck Rocha roller coaster sound. Put on your phone to phone ring to kind of let you know that there may be trouble ahead. But Virginia to me is the bellwether state, and again, that margin is going to be important. They count pretty fast, and you're going to get a pretty good sense of what's happening there, and that should be a pretty good indicator of where Pennsylvania will ultimately end up. Pennsylvania's going to be close, by the way. Whenever you're getting down to a couple points, it's going to be close. And Allegheny County and some of these larger counties, they count late too. So you have to remember it's going to look red early on, but the blue votes come in later because they're from larger, denser counties that take longer to count and certify. So Harris will close up that early red lead.
How far, Mike? Sorry to interrupt. Remember 4 years ago, and you may not, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Do you remember how late it was when Pennsylvania was called 4 years ago? Was it like several days, wasn't it?
It was a couple days until we actually knew for certain. But I mean, guys like you and we knew. I knew. Right. I was like, this isn't the margin we were expecting. You never want to lose Pennsylvania, win or lose Pennsylvania by, 80,000 votes or less. But it's common. But if you can keep it above that, the night gets better, the night goes longer. But like I said, we are going to be watching. Look at Virginia. That's going to give you the trend line. There's
And they're
enough.
in Virginia, sure y'all know, they close the polls at 7 o'clock. So you'll know they'll call the Virginia, if they haven't called the Virginia presidential by 10 o'clock, what Mike Madrid's saying is going to make a lot of sense to you.
Yeah, you got enough rural white non-college, you know, Trump voters and Trump counties. You've got white college educated up in Northern Virginia that works in the DC metropolitan area. You got a lot of black voters, you got a lot of Latino voters. You have the perfect petri dish to understand where this race is essentially going. Okay?
And no, and neither one of the campaigns have spent a dollar here.
Exactly. Precisely. So it's a good bellwether. That's going to be the indicator. If Kamala's getting the performance that she needs out of the northern counties and you're seeing good breaks in black and brown precincts, probably going to be a good night. If the Trump counties overwhelm it and the North County doesn't produce as much as it should, then it's going to be like, uh-oh, let's get ready and settle down for what's going to be a very, very long night. And then we'll know, the North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania stuff. Arizona was kind of the last one that clinched it, right? Remember that Fox News call that
Oh,
got
that's
pissed
right. Yeah,
everybody
yeah,
off?
yeah.
So, we're also, I think, going to know Nevada pretty early on. I'm not as optimistic as most people. I'm optimistic about the race. I think Kamala Harris wins this race, but I don't feel good about Nevada. I mean, I just don't. It's been a tough state anyway. I could be wrong, of course. Been wrong before, once back in 76, I think, but it
Oh, I
happened.
can tell you how you was wrong last week, but go ahead.
But I do. Like I said, the Wisconsin's always going to be too damn close to know right away. Always. Michigan will have a good sense of. Um,
I think Michigan in the Senate race and the presidential shocked people that it's in better shape than Pennsylvania or Wisconsin. I think that for lots of different reasons, I just think that there's more black people there. I think that there are more white working class who get the Democratic message more than other places because there's
yes,
UAW infrastructure.
yes,
And in Wisconsin, y'all, you got to remember Wisconsin is just not a big state, and there are hardly any black people, and there's very few Latinos. Sure, there's a population, and the population could make the difference. I'm not bouncing off of what Mike said about the margin. Remember, we won the state by 10,000 votes last time. There's 60,000 registered Democratic Latinos there. Like if they show up there, they can be the difference. But as compared to Philadelphia and all the Puerto Ricans that we keep talking about, there's 500,000 Puerto Ricans in Pennsylvania.
yeah.
I pulled the numbers yesterday in Wisconsin. There's like 1,500 like Puerto Ricans, but
Puerto
there's
Ricans, yeah.
yeah, just Puerto Ricans. So like, because I've been looking at just these Puerto Rican numbers, a little a little jujitsu for those of you who want to know how we do this. I love giving people. It's so close to the election, I can tell people all the secrets 4 days before.
Right.
But Mike, everybody in Puerto Rico for 50 years all had the same area code. So you know what I can do?
Hmm.
I can go check in Pennsylvania to everybody who's registered to vote with that area code, whether they show up on the voter file as Puerto Rican or not, and know exactly who the hell they are
That's
without
brilliant.
having to use any targeting.
That's sneaky. I'm gonna steal that.
It's
It's
re-
also it's also another little trick that we used in 2020. Sorry, we keep coming back to the Puerto Ricans. You can buy spots on the island cheap, and
that
then
part.
and everybody shares it with their family, like on the WhatsApp channels. So you can flood the island. You can look. You can't vote for president if you live on the island, but once you come to the continental 48, or 50 rather, anywhere, if you come to the mainland, you can vote. So if you can just flood the island with cheap ads and just saturate it, and that creates a buzz that pushes out to all their cousins and aunts and uncles and nephews and brothers and sisters that have gone to the mainland. It all does transfer out. It's a smart, cheap way to do a bank shot, and it's been extremely effective. It works.
Before we go, let me ask your thoughts. Tell me, are there any? We'll give you. I want predictions in the Senate. Is there any Democrat incumbent that loses?
And the Senate side,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Tester loses.
Okay.
Brown loses.
Mm-hmm. That's Montana and Ohio for you at home.
Yeah, I'm sorry. They're defending a lot, right?
Everything's defend. So it's Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. Those
I,
all
I
three
think
of
I
those.
think I think Casey holds in Pennsylvania. Um,
Slotkin's going to win in Michigan, easy.
yeah, yeah.
But what do you think? Wisconsin is tied right now.
I think the
And for you answer, for all of you at home, you should know that they have a Republican crazy senator who got elected just 2 years ago.
yeah. I believe the Democrat wins in Wisconsin. And the reason why I paused there for a moment is because I believe there's going to be a record amount of ticket splitting. May not be,
Ooh.
I may not be 30%, but when I look at the data from 2020, and when you notice that Republicans they lost the White House, Donald Trump loses, of course, but it's a record high turnout, highest turnout in the history of the country. And Republicans picked up House seats. And I look at bellwether counties like Orange County, California, where there's been methodical ticket splitting since 2016. I think a lot of people, especially in battleground states, know the stakes. They're very tuned in. They're like, we're not going to do this Donald Trump thing again, but I don't like Kamala Harris and I don't trust those Democrats. So I'll vote for her, but I'm voting for the Republican down ticket as a check. That's going to happen a lot more than people think. And if it happens
It's
with
going to
just,
happen in Arizona for sure.
it's going to happen in Arizona for sure. I mean, you've seen on social media, there's these Trump Gallego signs out there, right? It's like, we're not voting for Kerry Lake, but we're going to vote for Gallego. Ruben Gallego, we haven't talked about this race much, and I know we're running out of time here, but I think what he's doing with Latino Man is because he doesn't need to. He's going to win that race anyway. Knock on wood. You can't say it. Mike Madrid said it. There's no jinx in there. But he's going. He like I said it months ago on this show. The same way Jim Clyburn saved the race for Joe Biden, Ruben Gallego may save the White House for the Democrats by delivering that state for Kamala Harris by bringing enough of these Latinos that would not otherwise vote for her home. That may be what happens. I would not be surprised. Is he may actually be doing the knocking and dragging that he's doing, the down home stuff, going to tacos and coffee this morning. He's doing
Before the
boxing
sun come
events.
up.
I mean, come on. I mean, that's working. Like this late in the cycle, this dude's working it with base vote. If Harris gets a better share than 2020 and wins Arizona and wins the White House, she's gonna owe it to Ruben Gallego for bringing that race home. Look, I don't know. You probably can't say, but I think that's why he's doing it. He doesn't need to be there with those numbers. He's going to win. He's going to beat Kerry Lake. I think we all have a good sense of that. He's running hard. He's running to base. I get that. But the bottom line is, if Arizona can be won for Kamala Harris, it will be by the strength of Ruben Gallego's campaign.
The story, the story, thank you for saying that, Mike. The story will be after the election. The piece that will be written will say, Ruben Gallego shows the Democratic Party a pathway to win Latino men back. They don't have to take that path, but if they choose to, Ruben was very intentional from day one, 2.5 years ago when he hired me, to say, I'm going to do something about this Latino man problem, and I'm going to just lean into what I know because he's one of those men.
Yeah.
I'm one of those men.
Yeah.
I'm a non-college educated brown man. This morning, he was at a construction site with construction workers, giving out coffee and tacos, talked to them for a while, and listened to them. I tweeted, this is how you win the vote. You show up where they're at. They're going to work at 6 a.m. before the sun comes up with reflected vests on and hard hats. Listen to what they care about. Say, I really appreciate you. Here's some coffee and taco because I know you have a shitty job and a shitty day. Guess what? You ain't got to worry about breakfast this morning. I got you. That's all you have to do. It's not more complicated than that. And then just to give a little bit of a chef's kiss and a little bit of me patting myself on the back, on Friday night, we're super excited to be hosting a rodeo, Mike Madrid, a real rodeo with 10 bulls and a carne asada and a rally with the Harris campaign in Arizona, where again, motherfuckers are going to ride a bull. Not Ruben. We won't let Ruben ride a bull, but people are going to ride a bull.
I was going to say, I want Ruben on a bull.
I got
get down
Trump
there. I'd fly
right
down
away
there.
on the bull. They were like, gosh damn it, Rocha, you know, the boy ain't riding the bull. Matter of fact, I said, we're going to have a little, I want folks to be able to talk to the media about this rodeo and the bulls. So I can talk about it now because, again, this will come out 4 days before the election. On a staff call, we may or may not have had a Chuck Rocha tutorial on the different kinds of bulls and how to talk about them.
There you go.
Oh, my God.
You need somebody with a Donald Trump mask on that bull. That's what you should have
done. But anyway, my little thing that's only different before we close on the Senate is I agree with Mike. But here's my one super prediction for the Senate. We'll talk about the presidential on the pod that we put out right before Election Day. We're going to record tomorrow probably. Is that I predict that Sherrod Brown wins Ohio by more than the Democratic senator in Wisconsin. She's going to win, but she's going to barely win. She's going to win by 1 point, and Sherrod Brown's going to win by 3. That's my crazy prediction.
Yeah.
Because I think that.
Did I say Brown wins or loses?
You said that he loses.
Yeah, I'm gonna change that. Brown's gonna win.
Cool.
Bernie Moreno's a crazy guy, right?
Right. He
Yeah,
is.
no, I think even in Ohio, I think Brown
He wins,
wins.
and I think he wins by much less than Donald Trump. I think this is going to make Mike Madrid's ticket splitting part. I went back and looked at how much Donald Trump won Ohio by last time, and he won it by 9.
Yeah,
It was in Montana that he won it by like 13 or 14.
yeah.
But he Trump wins it this time by more. He's going to win it by 12, I think, 10 to 12. But I think Sherrod Brown wins by 2 or 3. And I think that the good senator in Wisconsin is going to win by a couple thousand votes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big shocker of the night, is that it was so close in Wisconsin and that Sherrod Brown did so well.
So Republicans will pick up 1 or 2 seats, you think?
I think they just pick up Montana.
Just 1.
Yeah, I think they have a 1-seat majority. If they have a great night, and if Donald Trump wins the presidency,
Yeah.
then they probably win Wisconsin Senate race.
Yeah.
And they are up by 2, but no more than that. If they have a crazy good night, they could win in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But that's when things are getting like Donald Trump really overperformed, and I just don't see all the polling being that wrong. It's super close. He could win all 3 of those. I think he could possibly win 2 of them, which is Wisconsin and Pennsylvania.
I think I think, and again, maybe I'll regret saying this, but I think there could be some serious leakage on the Republican side. I think you could have a record number of Republican defections, and by record, I mean if it increases by 1 or 2 points. Let me put it this way: 1% Republican defection is bigger than the margin of victory that Biden won in Georgia, Arizona, and Wisconsin. 1% Republican defection. So if she moves the needle 3 points in other big states, it could have a massive impact.
And also, we can go a little longer, Dave, because this is the pre-election poll. People expect just a little bit more. First of all, the senator, for God's sakes, in Wisconsin is Tammy Baldwin. I was having a senior moment there. I've done work for
She wins. She's known. She's liked.
Yeah, but it's maybe the ugliest campaign. I'm working in that race.
Yeah.
I'm working on the IE side of that. They have attacked her for being a lesbian. They've attacked her for being married to a lobbyist. They've attacked her for transgender stuff. They've attacked her. But again, it's not because she's not good or because she's got a billionaire that she's running against named Eric Hovde, who also has a house in Orange County down the street from Mike on the beach, probably. But not that just that, but that there's not enough base to really run up any numbers anywhere.
Yeah.
You're over reliant on these white college educated people who, thank God for us, love a Democrat these days.
Yeah.
But to Mike's point about the percentage of defections, think about this, y'all, is if she underperforms a little bit with Latino men, and she is, if she underperforms just a little bit with Black men, she probably will. Those are just small fractions of the most infrequent voters in the world, while she is overperforming with the highest performing voters in the world, which are college educated white women who show up like it's their job. That's why she wins. No disrespect to brown or Black men. I think they show up. I think she does really well with them. But if you compare it to past elections, there's going to be a little bit of underperformance, especially with Latino men. Black men will probably end up getting to plurality where they were with Joe Biden. But, oh my God, I guess we could talk about this for several hours. I want to thank everybody for listening this week. We're going to try to put out one more of these between now and the election day. Also, don't forget to register and vote, for God's sakes. And if there's something you want us to talk about or you really want to hear on the post-election special that we will do the day after the election, even though we probably won't have a winner, we record on Wednesdays. We're going to try to do this on Wednesdays, all depending on when we do it. DM the Twitter account. DM on the Apples. Don't forget to follow us on Apple and on the Spotify and all the others. Don't forget to like us and share. Don't forget to tell your friends and neighbors about it. And until next week, we'll see you on the other side.